Hello, everybody. I love seeing all the people coming in and everything. I'm going to drop a message in the chat here real quick. Um, yeah, if this is your first time joining us, welcome to our new platform here. I'm very excited about all the content we have. We had a lot of questions come in advance, so I'll try not to go too long, so we can make sure to get to those and any other questions you have. Just a quick look around here. Uh, you're in the chat. I see a lot of people in the chat. That should be on the right hand side of your screen there. There's also a tab for Q&A. That's where you can ask questions, upvote questions, and we'll get to all those at the end. And we'll get going here. I don't want to miss with all the slides. If you have if you hear some barking through here, you're not imagining that. Now that the weather is beautiful outside, our dog, Mr. Lucky Waffles Esquire, is enjoying barking at everyone who walks by and any bird that flies by. So that is likely going to be heard at some point here. Just want to say welcome to everyone. I'm thrilled as everyone keeps rolling in here. I know sometimes it takes a couple of minutes to get going. I just want to start off here with a quick poll. Let me pop this up on screen. You should be able to answer this. I want to know, when are you starting your recruitment process with juniors? Do you start as soon as they're done as sophomores? They jump into that junior flow and you're after them. Is it just sort of as they inquire, but you're not actively going out and prospecting? That's more of a senior activity. Do you really start hard in the fall, in the spring, or you just don't talk to juniors? Let them come if they want, but not something we're going to be. Oh, maybe I hope that the Lucky doesn't bark loud enough to make any other dogs there bark. That'll be a fun experiment. See if they can hear through everything going on here. All right, so a lot of people have it queued up. So as soon as they become juniors, they're in that conflow, they're going. Yeah, it's one of those where everyone does it slightly differently. I was curious what we might see, and yeah, hopefully this will inform some conversations on your campuses as well. All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about the results from this is our 4th annual junior survey. So it's sort of kicks off a series of 3 surveys that we do, large scale surveys, where we have, we interview juniors in the spring so that we get their idea of, okay, what are you doing in terms of your search? How are you going about consideration at this point? It's still early. A lot of people haven't really started actively searching yet, but of those juniors who are, let's figure out what we know. We do one in the fall then, so when seniors are in the heart of their recruitment cycle, and then we'll put out one each fall, looking back at how students actually made their decisions and what actually led to where they enrolled. So with this one, just getting it out there because this is always one of the common questions. You're going to get the recording and slides tomorrow. We'll have all that. If you prefer to listen to a podcast version, you can find that in the Enrollment Insights podcast feed from your favorite podcast app, whatever that might be. You can also scan that QR code right there if you want to go and check that out and subscribe and get all the updates, all the episodes directed right to you. With our survey this year, we had just over 5,600 responses collected from current high school juniors. 48% of those were underrepresented minority students. We tend to be just who we are, just slightly overrepresented on underrepresented minority students. It's a good problem to have. 20% identified that they were low income students, so bottom 2 income quintiles. Another 36% don't know their household income. And that makes a lot of sense because these are juniors. They haven't filed a FAFSA yet. They might not have had that conversation with their family. They don't really know how much their parents make. I know, and maybe things have changed a lot, but for me, I didn't know how much my parents made until we filed a FAFSA the first time. 30% of respondents were first gen. 22% were progressing gen. Now that's something I've started looking more at, is these students who have one parent who does have a college education, one who does not. And then 48% were second gen. The interesting thing there is that these progressing gen students tend to be halfway in between in terms of their behaviors, their concerns, their fears, their barriers. If we see first gen students facing more issues than second gen. Progressing gen are somewhere in the middle, but a lot of times they're ignored. They get lumped in and treated as a second gen student. I won't go down that big rabbit hole just because of how much we have to cover here today. But yeah, it was very interesting to see these results. The first thing I want to cover, the first big theme that we see from the results, is that students are really finding the application process daunting. These juniors are very concerned about it. That it's a major fear, a major pain point for them. 1% of juniors thought it would be easy to apply to college. Now I had to go back several times and double check that and make sure that that can't be right. But yeah, 1% said that they thought it would be easy to apply to college. This is a major concern. When we talked to seniors this spring, to give some context, 55% said that it was as challenging as expected, and 15% said it was even more challenging than they expected. If only 1% think it's going to be easy, this is something we got to get in front of. If students think this is going to be this really, really challenging, really complicated, really painful process, how about instead we say, how do we simplify this? How do we make this easier for students? How do we take away that pain point? Because we want students to apply. We want them to enroll. We want them to feel as little stress as possible. It's going to be stressful. It's a big life change, but let's not make the application one of their major barriers. When we ask them about their predicted challenges, what do we think you're going to really struggle with? 46% said that they were concerned about just filling out the application. Am I going to make a mistake? Do I understand what they're asking for? That's a big thing. 50% said that just deciding where to apply is going to be a challenge for them. We've got over 4,000 institutions in the US. That's a lot. There's a lot of options out there. Even if you're just looking locally, a lot of times you got a lot of options depending on what you call local. And then 54%, the biggest one there, they're concerned about paying application fees. If I'm applying to a lot of colleges and each one wants $50, $100, $250, that adds up fast. And when financial aid and affordability is already their top concern, then okay, adding on to that, applying to a college that I might not be accepted to, only to find out that I can't afford it anyway, that's a major concern. And that's why when we ask them about direct admissions pathways, programs, and we phrased it to them as programs where you would be accepted without applying, because that's what direct admissions is. 80% said they would be more interested in colleges that offered that. Because if I'm a 4.0 student, I'm not getting denied a lot of places anyway. It's just a lot of time, a lot of effort to go out. But instead, if colleges come to me and recruit me, they found that very appealing. 90% said that fast response of being offered and they could know they were in and know what their option was right off the bat, that's a positive. 96% said the getting an upfront scholarship offer was appealing. So they knew when they moved forward, here's my initial merit scholarship. Now, on top of that, I'm going to get a need-based aid, other specialty scholarships. There might be more merit aid. That was very appealing. It took some stress off of them in terms of getting that full picture, because we all know that that sticker price is not the same as the cost that students are paying. You'll see that in every communication about affordability. Yes, we say we cost this much, but we don't actually. If we can take some of that away from students and make it easier to understand, all the better. And I was also curious, we asked about different admissions programs. So direct admissions, early action, early decision. And the interesting thing there was students are already as familiar with direct admissions as they are early action programs. And these are juniors. They haven't started that process yet. So that was very interesting there, that it's already in their vocabulary. So if I can put one piece of homework on everyone's plates, I would say let's spend the next few weeks as we're getting ready here, ramping up for the next cycle. Evaluate your applications. Look at your requirements. Are there pain points? Are there barriers? Where can we simplify this? Do we need all the information at this stage just to make an admissions decision? Or are there things we don't need until they're getting ready to enroll? Let's ask that later. Let's take fewer things that we need and actually just ask what we need to make a decision. How do we make sure we're serving students rather than letting students give us all the information they might possibly need, and then we use half of it. So what does this mean for you? Students are aware that colleges need students. It's a buyer's market out there. There's a lot of colleges who need the bodies. They need the students. Students have a lot of options of whether they even enroll anywhere, whether they do a boot camp instead, whether they go into an apprenticeship. There has to be a very strong reason. And the harder it is for them to apply and go through the process of just finding out whether it's even an option for them, let's make it as easy as possible. Students want to demystify the application process. They want to better understand, and this came up a lot when we asked, what tips and information do you want from colleges? They just want to understand how decisions are made. How is the information I'm giving you going to be used? How do you decide who's a good fit? How do you decide who gets financial aid? They want some of this mystery taken out of it. And we heard this when we've talked to counselors too. A lot of counselors are left in the dark. Processes need to be designed to serve students first and foremost, not just a process for the sake of process. Not just something because, well, we've always done it this way. We've always asked it this way. Go back and look. Do we need this? And is it telling us what we think it is? What's valuable? And this is why direct admissions programs are so appealing to students, because it takes away that uncertainty. It takes away these processes that they know they don't need. If I'm a 4.0 student, why should I submit 3 recommendations and fill out a 5-page application and all this when you're at a college that accepts 80% of people? So, second theme here, and I hope this is a little tongue-in-cheek. Affordability is more like a fear debilitating. Students are very concerned about the cost, about the price they're going to pay, about their return on investment. So how do we make sure that this is something we can address early? 36% of students said that their number one fear is not being able to afford the college they want to go to. It's even higher for first gen and low income students. And this, you might say, well, 36%, they were given 11 options and told, what's your number one? They could only select one. What's your number one fear of all these things you might be concerned about? Because we already know when we ask, what are you concerned about? They're concerned about almost everything. But what is the thing that scares you the most, that keeps you up at night? And number one was not being able to afford where they want to go. They don't want to fall in love with the college and then find out, I can't go there anyway. 41% of students said they were afraid to ask their parents if cost is a factor. And that's a problem. Because if they aren't having these conversations with their family, they aren't going to know until much later in the process. So it's very important for them, very important, to get comfortable with having these conversations as a family. And that's something that I really think that we can do a lot to help facilitate. Have those emails, have those parent and student sessions, whether they're webinars, whether they're on campus. Just find ways to help bring parents and students in, have honest conversations about the cost, not necessarily the price, not all the buzzwords around affordability, because affordability means different things. Let's talk about what the cost might be to students. And let's bring students and parents together to have those conversations. This was one of the quotes from a student. They said, if I find a career that doesn't require college, it would feel like a waste of money and would prevent me from enrolling. There's a lot of options out there that don't require a college degree, right? We know that. This student is saying it has to be a clear, better value for me to invest in college, and getting upfront with them about what that investment will look like and what the outcomes are likely to be, and being honest and not trying to look at everything through rose-colored glasses. That's what they want. They want to make sure in an honest way that this is the right path for them. I always am interested here when we talk about sticker price. It is absolutely affecting whether or not a student will even inquire. There are students who will not inquire to colleges based on their sticker price. 76% of students said they would not even consider a college if it was above a sticker price that was acceptable to them. For 48% of those students, it's if the college's total price is over $40,000 a year. How many of you have a total price over $40,000 a year? One or two, I'm willing to bet, right? 21% of students said they wouldn't consider colleges over $20,000 a year. And That's really interesting to me because that's not an insignificant number, and almost everyone costs over 20,000 a year on as their sticker price. Um, this is something that students don't always understand, what all goes into that price and how it differs from the actual cost. Uh, and I've used this example before that when we talk about college and the cost, it is priced differently than anything else students have ever done. If they're going to buy a cheeseburger, they know what they're paying for that cheeseburger. They're not going to say, "Oh, I would like to order this," and then you get to the register and find out it's less than you expected. That'd be nice, but it's not priced like that. College is. You don't find out until the very end what the final cost is going to be, and that is very stressful. Students and families do not like it, and yet almost nobody is making a change there. I think that's something that really has to change. Whether that is less aid but a lower sticker price to account for that, whether that is, there's a lot of things that I have no control over. Sitting in my seat here, it's something that has to be considered. If we want people to stop writing these articles about how college isn't worth it, then we have to reevaluate how it's priced, not the cost, but the price. So what does this mean? Uh, the cost, the price, and affordability are three different concepts. Cost is what they're actually paying, right? That's a different conversation than saying, here's our total price. And when we talk about affordability, that means different things to every family. When I see colleges going out saying, we are a place of affordability. Well, what does that mean? It means something different to a family making 100,000 a year than it does someone making 20,000 a year. What's affordable is very different. If you're a beginning admissions counselor, an affordable car to you looks very different than your VP. So we can't just keep using the term affordability. It doesn't really mean anything. Excuse me. Need a little tea break there. So we have to address this actual cost and talk about, for these types of students, here's what you might expect as your actual cost. And you can't wait until they apply, because students are going to write you off before they even inquire. Might not be a lot of students, depending on what your sticker price is and where you are. But you don't want students to say, "I'm not even going to consider them because of the sticker price." You definitely can't wait till senior year. The sooner you can start talking about it, the better off you're going to be. You're losing inquiries, you're losing applicants, if you do not address this early. I know a lot of people don't like talking about it because you know that will turn some parents off, but you're already doing that by not talking about it. I'll get off my soapbox there. That's a big one right there. Another one that was really shocking here: current marketing tactics are training students to ignore colleges. This high volume, low relevance outreach is just killing their interest. One student here said they wish they could make mail more personal and include student life. They're tired of just the generic pieces that don't talk about what life will be like for them. And let's extend that. That's not just mail they're talking about, right? It's the emails, it's the text messages, it's the web pages. This was just this week yet on Reddit, where a student said they received over 13,000 emails in just over 2 years. That is insane. To get that many emails, there's no way they're even reading a fraction of those. This is something that has to change. This student and many others are being trained to ignore the emails when it's just nonstop barrage of emails. High volume, low relevance has to stop. When I did secret shopping as a junior last year, 26% of colleges were contacting juniors weekly. These are students who are just getting into their college search, if they're even that active. If they're prospects, they're not actively searching yet. So this is something that you have to think about. If someone didn't come to you and say, "I would like information on that," do you think you need to email them multiple times a week? 15% of students said that they had received relevant information from colleges. That has not improved in the past several years. 87% of those, though, who did receive personalized and relevant information, things about what they say they care about and asked for, said that it made them more interested in that college. Well, that should be case enough to really look at your comm flows and make sure that they're speaking to what the student says they care about. Is it speaking to their major? Is it speaking to the things they say are affecting their consideration? And if you don't know what that is, you need to ask. You just ask them, what's most important to you? What are you worried about? What is going to make your decision easier? And really address those things for them. If they're inquiring on academics page and you respond by telling them to visit, you're not answering their inquiry. You're not giving them information related to where they asked. So this absolutely has to stop, or else they're just going to be ignoring everybody. The big one here, I would like to say that there was something rosy here. Just in the past 4 years, this is by graduating class, past 4 years ago, 81% of students said the weekly email was acceptable. Yeah, I don't mind that. But it's gotten so bad that now 39% say the weekly email is acceptable. Not that they want it, but that is acceptable. That's two different ideas there. Uh, Everything else is even lower, so let's not even worry about that. They do not want the weekly phone calls. They do not want the weekly text messages. They don't need a postcard telling them to visit every 5 days. When we look at social media, because this always comes up, they're less likely to go to official institutional accounts because they're not getting really the authentic look. This doesn't mean they're not using it. We had a lot of students say that they went to non-university accounts for their search, uh, but there's a decline in whether or not they're interested in going to your institutional account to learn about you. The one outlier here, and I want to point this out because I don't have an explanation. I thought last year might be a blip, but the trend's continuing. LinkedIn. These are high school students going to LinkedIn college profiles to learn more about the college. I would love to have an explanation there. But that is an interesting twist. Now, it doesn't mean just start spamming your LinkedIn profile with apply today, visit today information, but think about who that audience is. When we think about the unofficial, so they're going to current high school students, they're going to accounts where they can learn more about the college process, all that. They're turning to YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. Every other platform, it was less than 10%. Instagram and LinkedIn were the only platforms where more students turned to than the official university accounts. They were more likely to go to other students and just groups and things like that than they were the actual university account. So what does this mean? Do less. You don't need to be sending as many emails as you are. Do less, but make it more relevant. Send an email that speaks to the major they say they're interested in and include some student life information, the major and some outcomes, the major and scholarships. Jump into, if you're talking about affordability and all that, hey, let's pepper in some outcomes as well. And then do that every 3 weeks. They're not going to forget you if you make yourself memorable. I've heard that explanation before. Well, if we don't email them every week, they're going to forget we exist. No, they're going to get tired of reading your emails. We know when we ask them what they want to hear about, they want to hear about financial aid, housing, admissions requirements, and their intended majors. I want you to take a hard look at the comm flow, and does it match that? Or is it a lot of visit today, apply now? It has to match what they care about for them to actually read it, engage with it, and take action. Yeah, I actually, I'm going to pull this one up onto the screen because I really like this. Oh, it's not pulling up, is it? There we go. From Gabby. She encourages students and parents to check out LinkedIn, see if our mission reflects the actual actions and outcomes. I love that. Love that. That's a great way to link what you're doing with the earned media you're getting. Yeah, perfect. All right. Next up here, students are casting a wide net, and you really have to make sure that you're getting caught in there. A little bit of fishing reference there, of course, but there's no place like home. 69% of students said that distance from home doesn't matter to them. They're more interested in, maybe they want to go further away, but they're not really sure, or they're more worried about the fit. Only 12% of students said they want to stay within an hour of home, that's very important to them. Now, at this point, consideration doesn't equate to enrollment, but that's been a shift. Students are open to going much further away, but there has to be a strong reason why. What are you getting when I have to go 3 hours away that I'm not getting if I go 20 minutes away. You have to be able to make that case, make it clear, not talk about you'll make strong friendships that last a lifetime and we have academic excellence and we have professors who care and all that, because every college says that. What stands out? There's less of a focus on a single type of institution. We saw an increase with everything except for-profit four-year institutions, with more students considering them. That's you're not just competing with colleges like you. They have a lot of options out there. We're also seeing a resurgence in HBCUs. 80% of African American students are considering HBCUs, and a quarter said they plan to enroll at one. This is of juniors, of students who are currently looking as juniors. Um, if you're an HBCU, that's great news. That is absolutely great news. If you're not, you need to think about, okay, who are we? Are we an inviting place? Are we a place setting students up for success? It should be a bit of a call to action there. When we ask about what students want in their campus, what do you want in your experience? Diversity, again, ranks out everything. I always recommend, see that second point there, 75% say it's important that there's a diverse faculty and staff. Go walk that down to HR. Ask them, how are we looking? What are we doing for our recruitment of staff? Arts and cultural experiences, again, way up there. Really, this was something we saw happen during the pandemic, and it has persisted, where athletics and arts flipped. More students want arts and culture than athletics now. Religious life, we've seen a surge there, and that's been a really interesting one. We see that in the enrollment survey too, in terms of how students make their decision. They're interested in religious life on campus. That's been very interesting, considering nationally we're seeing some declines and students saying that they attend church regularly, things like that, but religious life is interested. So something to watch there. So what does this mean? It means you can widen your geography, but you have to differentiate your messages, show why you're worth that trip. You have to own your backyard still. We're not going to say don't do that, but think about where you can have some good pipelines outside of that area too. Students really are looking at a wide variety of colleges, so you have to be able to differentiate yourself. What makes your experience as a private four-year better than a public? What makes it you better as a four-year versus a two-year? All that. If you're not an HBCU and you want to enroll African American students, you have to showcase that you are a safe place, you have support, and that you have success. It's not just lip service. That's what they're looking for right now. There's a big draw to HBCUs. And if you are not an HBCU and you want to still enroll African American students, you have to be able to show why they should consider you. The religious life piece, this does not, and I've had this question before, that does not necessarily mean that they want a religiously affiliated campus. They're interested in religious life, and that can be anywhere. So that's something you can talk about, you can showcase to students who are interested. Last one here. Been a lot of news in higher ed. I don't know if anyone keeps up on all that and reads all the journals and all that. A lot in the news for us to be wringing our hands about. Juniors don't necessarily get it all, though. So we may not have to worry as much as you think. 48% of juniors were aware of all the issues going on with the FAFSA. And this is of students who are currently looking for colleges. So for those who aren't, I'm willing to bet it's even lower. Of those who are aware, 60% said it's making them feel more anxious. But 35% are also saying that, okay, I'm aware of it. It's just not impacting me yet. So while we may be very concerned about what this is going to do next year and the year after, there's a great opportunity here to get in front of it. You don't have students dropping out altogether because, this is such a disaster. Yes, it's a concern for them. So let's get in front of it. Let's address that concern. Never be afraid to address a fear head on. In terms of the SCOTUS decision, majority of students weren't aware of it. They weren't aware of the decision. And even the majority of those who had said that it's not affecting them. There are some still who say that they think it'll affect where they will be offered admission, or that may affect their financial aid. But it's not the world-ending crisis that we might think it could be. When we ask more specifically about affirmative action, kind of tied into that decision, 62% don't know what it means. Of those who do know what it means, they're more than 2 to 1 in support of it. So, not a massive shift there in terms of priorities, concerns, all that. So, what does this mean? Don't pass your stress on to students. Try to minimize the impact with early outreach, with education, with support. Be there to be supportive to them. Don't just make it all about you should enroll here. There has to be that nurturing, there has to be that educational aspect as well. Financial aid was already the number one stressor for students. So prepare communications now to address that and also be prepared. You know, get in front of it and tell students, hey, in case this happens again, here's how we're going to handle it. Here's what you can do. If you can get that in front of students and families now, you're going to help yourself set yourself up for success in the fall when hopefully it launches and there's no issues. Okay, there was a lot there. We're going to jump into questions now. We had a lot of questions come in advance in the Q&A tab. That's something that you can go there, add your questions, submit questions, upvote questions. We will go to the first one here. What is the most important thing driving the decision on a college for the next class? Well, the big thing I want to just make clear, juniors haven't made their decision yet, so it's more of consideration. I just want to make sure we're using the same terminology there, driving their considerations. The big things they have to be able to answer: does this college have my major? Can I afford it? And will I belong? Those are the main things. They need support being able to answer those. If you don't have their major, they're going to write you off right off the bat. It needs to be talking about what the actual cost is so they can understand, can I afford this? Is this going to be an option for me? They want to be able, when we talked about the things they want to hear about, financial aid, housing, those sorts of things. What is my life going to be like on campus? That matters much more to them than telling them to apply and visit again. They want to be able to have a reason why they should. Next up, what's the biggest difference in marketing juniors now versus a handful of years ago? What's changed? I like this one. This is our 4th year of doing this survey. So we've seen, it's amazing how many things only have minorly changed. The big things is that I'm seeing, at least, are the decline in acceptance for bad marketing. We saw that when they were talking about they did not want the weekly emails. They're irrelevant to them. But in terms of what they're looking for and their considerations, arts and culture, 67% of students this year said that it's important to them that they attend a college that emphasizes arts and cultural activities versus 32% 4 years ago. So big upswing there. In terms of religious life, I mentioned that as well. 41% this year said that they want religious life opportunities on campus versus 12% in 2021. And then rankings was another one. I know colleges love them or hate them, but 2/3 of students this year said that rankings matter to them versus 60% in 2021. So that's some of the big shifts. A lot of things. I mean, we talked about the decline in going to social channels owned by the university. So there's that. All right. Next up, let me pin it to the screen here first. Where do juniors go to learn about colleges? Good question. The number one thing, when we ask them, what are your top 3 ways of researching colleges? College websites themselves. They go straight to the source, 61%. So they prefer that. Number 2 was their school counselor. So building those relationships, making the advocates, making these students advocates for you, and being supportive and educational to them is a big aspect there that can really help you. Yeah, definitely recommend that. So that's where we see they're going. We know half of college-bound students have a profile and niche, and then more actually use it too. That's also an aspect. Uh, let's see. Next up here. This is a good one. How can we downplay negative education media to young minds? Uh, well, we know that they are not as focused on it as we are because we see it all the time and we worry about it. They'll hear some headlines here and there. They'll hear some things that may or may not be accurate. I think the big things is talking more about results and less of the fluff. Being able to show, you know, students in your major, here are their job outcomes. Here's where they work. Here's starting salaries. Here's even the average cost that they pay per year, things like that. The more granular you can get it to them, the more relevant it will be. But when people keep talking about, oh, it's not worth the investment, I think the main things are we have to take back the narrative. Colleges have to own the narrative and can't just keep seeding it to other people who have other agendas of not wanting people to go to college. Really have to play up, here are the outcomes. Here's what we're seeing. Here's why you should pursue college in terms of, yes, you still need to talk about, well, we have the personal growth, we have the network and things like that. Students care so much about the outcomes. Is it going to be positive outcomes? They're not going to leave me with crippling debt. They keep talking about crippling debt. I don't think they know what that means typically. So talking about realistically, this percentage of students take out loans. Of those who do, here's their average loan debt after. Just being as realistic as possible. Let's see. Perfect. What are some ways to show off the student experience that doesn't rely on social media? Uh, this one, yes, I think a lot of times we lean heavily on social media because of the visual aspects, and we think, oh, well, students are on social, so they want to see our contact all the time. I think there's a few things we can do. If you're sending out mail and email, make sure it's high quality and make sure that you're providing great visuals, great stories that really speak to the student experience first and foremost. Talk about campus traditions. Talk about students who came from their area and the support they found once they got on campus. Um, Other things like having an experience hub on your website where students can go and explore different campus life opportunities, different traditions that they would see as a student. Make it easier for them to put themselves in current students' shoes because current students are one of the major people they look to for influence. What is their experience like? Uh, I think another one in that same vein would be looking to current students to talk more about their experiences, share their experiences on social, so it's not coming from you, but also postcards, text campaigns, emails from current students, things like that. It does not all have to lean so heavily on you. Um, this was an interesting one. How can you determine what your niche is? One, I like the play there, adding niche in there. Thanks. Uh, I think you have to be able to focus on who you are, not who you want to be. So the more focus groups you hold, the more brand research you do, market surveys. How do people internally describe you, and what are their experiences? Whether that's students, faculty, and staff, externally with alumni, community members, employers. Um, you need to figure out what are the themes that keep coming through there. If everyone's talking about a certain type of experience or a certain thing that you do differently, emphasize that, make that your niche. If you're struggling to enroll students in certain programs, you have to have those hard conversations of, is that really where we're best serving students? Or are there areas where we can get more students if we just put more resources into it and we emphasize that more strongly? I think it all comes down to doing the research, though. And whether that's you do it yourself or you work with a branding agency, you have to have a good picture of who you are and what you do best. All right. Next up here, how prominent should two-way texting be for college recruitment? Well, I think, and I'll add a little aside here, I think every outreach should be approached as two-way outreach. If you're planning it as not being two-way, it's not a dialogue, it's just a monologue. It's you shouting at them with no intent to reply. So I think everything should be designed to be two-way, whether that's email, whether that's a way for them to respond to mail, whether that's text messages, whatever. So that aside, uh, 78% of students said they want texting. I think across the board, whatever channel we're talking about, asking students what they prefer and say, whether that's part of your inquiry form, whether it's supplemental form after they inquire, apply, or prospected, whatever, gain to know their personal preferences. Or if it comes up in conversation, have a field that your counseling staff can actually edit and say, oh, Kevin said that he really wants to hear by text messages primarily, or he wants you to call his parents about financial aid. That you need to be able to capture that and make it actionable. So, what are What are students' expectations for customer service? Do they want to use chat on websites? Uh, the expectations, they expect answers, and they expect the answers to be easy to find. That's been the case their whole life. Now, it's not always the easiest to navigate a college website. Sometimes it's arranged by internal structure rather than how people would use it. Uh, in terms of whether they want to use a chatbot, 13% of students said they did want to use chat on site, and 7% said they've used AI. I know you didn't ask that, but I assume that's going to be asked. And most of those who have said they were not impressed with the experience. So I'd say no. Focus on making the information easy to find. Make sure you're answering the most common questions. Make sure you're engaging with students. Make sure you're addressing their concerns, but don't rely on chatbots and AI to do your job for you either, because students say they don't want to. So that's something that you need to think about there. Next up, I like this question. Will we ever have precedented times again? I think yes, because of the definition of precedent. Precedent just being something that happens frequently enough that we can basically build a mental model for it. I think the new precedent, though, is chaos. That's our new chaos precedent. Boy, it is so hard to look back year over year at internal numbers in terms of pacing for apps, inquiries, financial aid packages, when are students depositing, when things have just changed so much. It seems like every single year, either something goes wrong or a process has changed. So, yes, but with a little asterisk there. Um, Next up here, how do you encourage parents who have never been to college that higher education is the right investment for their students? Um, Good question. The thing that I want to make sure we address here: first generation parents are not less supportive of college. They just aren't always sure how to navigate the processes, the lingo, all the expectations there. So being a good partner to parents should be the number one goal there, especially first gen. Make sure that you're speaking the same language, whether that's just some educational material on here's some terms you're going to see and here's what they mean. Because who in the world outside of education sees the term bursar, right? I had parents one time come up after a presentation and ask, I've heard of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science. What do they mean? They were afraid to ask it in front of the group because they thought everyone else knew. Willing to bet almost nobody in that room knew. I'd be curious to know how many people in here have good, clear definitions for the differences and how often they differ slightly by institution even. So make sure that you're speaking the same language. Make them feel like they can be an advocate for their student because you're partnering with them. You're supporting them. Um, and then help showcase the outcomes, showcase the expectations. Here's what we expect of students. Here's how we're going to support them and make sure that they are successful. They're not doing this alone. We're here to support them. And here's the outcomes we typically see. The more you can be a supportive partner, the better. Because for all parents, that's going to be the case, but especially if they're a first generation parent. All right. Next up here, do these insights transfer to prep schools? I would say maybe, but not necessarily. Um, for some of the behavioral and communication preferences, it's still the same students. So I think those may still hold. Um, when we start talking about the type of community they want, the type of environment they want, the price sensitivity, how they go about researching their options, I don't think that would translate because a prep school is a very different experience than going to college. So, hope that answers that one there. Uh, okay. What does the direct admissions application look like? Well, direct admissions by its very nature has no application. It is a student has a profile, so I can speak to niches specifically. I'm not an expert on everyone else's. Uh, when a student creates a profile, they're filling out over 30 fields, telling about themselves, going through, providing all the, a lot of cases, everything that you have on your application already. Um, and then if that student fits the profile that the college is looking for and would be admissible, there's a two-way match. The student can opt in once they see that initial academic scholarship. And then the process is handed off to the college. If you want to see more, there's actually a video showing the whole process at directadmissions.com. It's directadmissions.com. It'll show you the video, walk through what the student sees, all that. All right. What type of visit experiences is this group looking for? So are they looking for one-on-one opportunities, group visits? Do they want to get to know academic programs, things like that? Um, the main thing they want is relevance, whether that is small groups or one-on-one, as long as it, like, and by one-on-one, I mean individual campus visit. Um, they want to be able to see the things that matter most to them. They want to learn about their major. They want to see the dorms, all that. Uh, the one thing I want to point out here is when we've done these surveys in the past, only 20% of students said they want to meet one-on-one with people. They don't necessarily want to sit down in a room and have that kind of pressure. When we ask about what they want to see the most, it's dorms, talk to current students. They want to see where they'll study. So the academic buildings, the labs, all that. And they want to have time to ask questions. That does not necessarily mean, okay, we're going to go sit down in a room. You're going to talk to an admissions counselor who says, what questions do you have? They want to be able to ask questions along the way. That can be to students as they're taking them places. That can be conversationally at lunch. There's a lot of ways they can do that, but just making sure that they have the opportunity to get their questions answered. Okay. Next up here, in addition to email and text, what are some additional ways that we can get in front of students? The big ones here, yes, we know that they want relevant email. I feel like I've said that too many times now. But you can provide some high value mail, whether that is just a small postcard or a bifold or a trifold that speaks specifically to their major or specifically to students coming from their area and what they can expect. So if someone's coming across the country, that's its own level of anxiety. Let's talk about what's the town like? What's the campus like? Let's have some QR codes back to more rich content on the website. That's ways you can get in touch and keep in touch with students. If they want phone and video calls, that of course, but ask, is this going to be a good way to get in touch with you? Are there topics that would be better to sit down and talk to with you and your family? That's my biggest thing. On the inquiry form, as a supplement to your application, whatever, ask them how they want to be communicated with. Because some of them may say, only text or only email, but they're going to have a mix in there most likely. But then make sure that it's going to be high value. Whatever you're doing has to be high value. Okay. Do you have any insights on the trends of students making their decisions later than ever before? Anything about the mindset as they begin to move their process? Yeah, at this point, we're still early, but we do see, and we have seen students starting their search earlier. So younger students coming in niche and start adding colleges to their list, but also it's extending later into the late spring and summer. Students coming on, considering new options, applying to new colleges. There's a lot of uncertainty. I'm currently doing a survey of the enrolling class. We put that out every fall. And one of the questions I've asked this year is, are you still applying to colleges? And here we are, late May, there's still students applying to colleges. They've already been accepted other places, But almost to a person, they're saying it's because they want more options. They don't know if they'll get enough financial aid. So they're still applying to new colleges just in case. So we know that is getting extended. Um, in terms of what they're feeling now, there's a lot more stress. And the more stress you have, the more likely you are to just delay taking action. That's the case for everyone. If you know something's going to be stressful and painful, how likely are you to say, all right, let's jump right in, take control? They're putting it off because they're concerned. They're scared. They've got enough other things on their plate. It's just a barrier for them. Okay. At what point in the college search are students most likely to visit colleges? Uh, well, when we've done these surveys, 72% of juniors say they visited the campus in the spring of their junior year, by the spring of their junior year, I should say. That does not mean, though, that it's an official visit. It could be they came with a group, they came for some sort of activity or camp or something else. So while they have visited a campus, it may not be the way you want them to visit a campus. But the main thing we see and hear from them is they don't necessarily start signing up for individual visits, group visits, until they're active and committed to the search process. They have to be really looking to get into it. Of the students that said that they haven't visited yet, this is interesting. Well, actually, this is of all students. 7% of all students said that they will not visit until they've already decided where they're going. So they're waiting until that decision is made to set foot on campus. And I can hear the gasps already. 7% say they won't visit until after they're accepted. They don't want to get their heart up. 5% said they won't until after they have financial aid, which this year, that's a problem. 4% said they don't think visits are needed at all. But 22% said that they aren't visiting because they lack the resources to. Whether they don't have a car, they can't afford to go, they don't have the time, parents can't take time off. That's a big barrier. That almost a quarter of students say they can't visit because they just don't have the resources they need to. But at what point? Well, we know by spring of junior year, 72% have already visited a campus. So they're starting, fall of junior year. Some students said they were even starting back in sophomore year, whether that's through specific programs or just other activities on campus. Okay. I'll make sure we get to all the ones asked beforehand. Are juniors making the decision prior to their senior year, or are they waiting? Well, they have to wait. They haven't applied. They haven't done all that. I've talked to enough juniors who say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm going to this college," and then you look at where they actually enroll, and it's not that college. So even if students here in junior year say, "Oh yeah, I know where I'm going," they don't. They have to wait to make that decision until they get the financial aid, until they get the acceptances, all that. Um, All right. How feasible is it to get all of our messaging out to students with only sending one communication a week? Extremely. It is very, very easy. It's easier than you might think. I've seen enough emails, I've seen enough conflows to know you don't have that much to say that needs to be spread out over 52 if it's just 1 year's worth, 104 if we're looking at 2 years. Um, you can combine ideas. So if you say, well, uh, we really want to talk about our business major with these students, include the business major, but also talk about scholarships, also talk about opportunities to visit, also talk about outcomes, also talk about student life. How do they reconcile all the things they want to do with the coursework, with everything else going on? An email or a Conflow piece of any type does not have to be a one trick pony. It can address multiple things in each one. Um, so, if you're talking about, uh, well, we have hundreds of things we need to say. I think that let's flip that and say, what do students need to hear instead? If you come up with a list of, I would say even 20 things that students have to hear, those don't need to be individual emails even. So address them for sure. Find different ways to address them. But there's no reason we can't do biweekly, high relevance, high value contacts and not get in front of students. All right. For a sticker price consideration, are you talking tuition only? No, that is tuition, room, board fees. We ask them total cost slash sticker price because they're going to use different terms. Uh, so yeah, we want to know that total cost. Are they looking at the total cost, not just tuition? Now, if I'm a commuter student, I might ignore the room and board, all that. But the way we ask it, we want to know total cost. Okay. Here are students asking to simplify applications because they may be confusing thoroughness or inconvenience and having to answer multiple questions. No, I think that they want to simplify the process because their applications are really long in a lot of cases. And if they've inquired already, you've got most of that information already. Uh, I would ask the question: do you need everything on your application just to make an admissions decision? And I think if you look at your application, no, you don't. You're not using a lot of that information to make the decision. You want it for other things. You want it for other reasons. But that doesn't mean that you need to have all that on the application, followed up by, 3 references and their transcript, their official test scores, and you need this, and you need that. You need, you know, firstborn child, all that. Um, Students want an easier process. Okay. We had a lot more questions come in. Just sifting through all these. Okay. There we go. Is there any value in connecting with audiences offline? College fairs, school visits, community? Absolutely. But you need to be strategic about it because a lot of students aren't engaging with it. You only have a fraction of students going to a college fair. Okay, where are the college fairs that you're getting the most value for? Are you finding students there who are enrolling who you didn't have from anywhere else? That's where you need to go back and do some source analysis. Look for where did students come from, and you look for sort of that unique source. Did we get students from this college fair that we wouldn't have otherwise? Did we connect in a great way with students at this college fair? If it's you connect with one student a year and maybe they enroll, okay, let's not do that. High school visits was an interesting one that very few students said that they were how was it phrased? They applied to a college because of meeting with them at a school visit. Very few students. Now, does that mean school visits have no value? I would say no, because there's a lot of value in influencing the influencers. So speaking with the counselors, speaking with administration, speaking with teachers. These are the people who can influence your enrollments for years to come, not necessarily just a one-time in and out, uh, meet with 10 students type of thing. Um, there's definitely ways to do it, but you need to be strategic because I don't think anyone has the staffing anymore to do 12 weeks on the road, 3 to 5 high schools a day. You got to have people in the office. A lot of people have budgets down. Um, so just being very strategic about where you do go and how you do go. I know we're pretty much at time here. Anyone who wants to hang out, I'll keep going through questions. You'll get the recording tomorrow. I'll also be in the podcast feed for Enrollment Insights podcast. So you'll be able to get those in there. But yeah, I love there's so many questions. I hate to cut it off. So we'll just keep going. What is considered bad marketing to students? Um, I will tell you, when you're getting dozens of emails, and I wish I was exaggerating, dozens of emails a year, just saying visit today, or we have this visit program, or set up a visit. They know they can visit. That's not the problem. They have to have a reason to visit. Or if it's just so generic. We had that quote from a student saying that they want to be something that's worthwhile. They want to see student life. They don't want spam. The word spam comes up so much. They want information that speaks to what they asked for. I would say check this out on your own site, fill out an inquiry form, and see what you get. An inquiry is you asking a question. If you don't get a response to that, instead you get an automated email that tells them to apply and visit, that is bad marketing right there. They want things that speak to what matters most to them. That keeps coming up over and over again. They want to know, can I afford it? Does it have my major? What's life going to be like as a student? Will I fit in? If you're not answering that, You don't need to be sending it. That's the hard truth there. Let's see. This one, do you have retention data on direct admit students? We don't have an official white paper yet because we did a beta cycle last year. We're on our first large scale cycle. We'll have that later this fall once we see all the returning students. The initial data is very strong, but we won't have it official until later. It takes a year to do that. So we'll get that. We'll get it out. We'll share all that in a white paper and look forward to it. All right. These insights have been helpful. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Can you share how many students were surveyed for the percentage? So these were responses from over 5,600 students. This was posted to niche as well as emailed out to students. But we also see a lot of traffic coming in from search engines. That's the perk of our scale. That we are the largest platform that students come to. Half of college-bound students have a profile. So we're getting a great cross-section of students here. But yeah, 5,600, I think it was 5,630 was the final number. Let's see. Do juniors and other current inquiries want overnight visits like sleeping bag weekends? COVID seems to kill those off. I actually have never asked that. That would be really interesting though. That's something I'll have to add for the future. I wish I had a good answer for you there. But no, it's not something I've had. I think between COVID and concerns from legal departments, they've pretty well killed those off. Let's see. Do you have any? Hey, Kyle. Do you have any insights on the impact of parents and families and students? Absolutely. Parents and families are the number one influencer for students. They care a great deal. They rely on them for support in their college search, but then also they need the parents to help them out throughout the way. And that's where it's so important to have these resources and for you to actually be partnered with the parents, not just first gen parents. They need support too, but all parents are going to have concerns. They're going to have fears. So having those connections, those relationships with parents is critical. We do see all the time though that they're the number one influencer for students, which makes sense, right? You're with them all the time. Hopefully they want to be with them all the time. I say that as a parent who doesn't have a teenager yet, but yes, the parents have a great deal of influence in where the student considers as well as where the student actually enrolls. Okay. If considering students aren't using official social channels, where are they learning about colleges? Through other networks, friends? They're still using social channels. They just prefer not going to the institutional accounts. They're searching for current students. They're searching hashtags. They're going to groups depending on the platform. That's where they're going. They're not saying, "Oh, you know who's going to give me the best, most accurate, most authentic view of what this university is like?" Oh, I'll bet the people who are paid to like it. They're going to the students. They're going to the alumni. That's what they are looking for. And it's not necessarily about specific colleges either. They are looking for information about, what should I prepare to apply? What should I have ready to go on a college visit? What should I do to be prepared to live in a dorm? These things they've never done before. So there's the general as well as then searching out specific universities, just not through the official channels. But yeah, forums, groups, all that. Got several more questions here. I'm here all day, so I'll just keep going as long as we keep getting questions. I saw on the summary page with the parental involvement stat. Oh, I should put this on the screen, huh? I saw on the summary page with parental involvement stats before I signed up, the significant amount of students said they didn't want their parents being contacted, but parents are the biggest influencers. How do we navigate this? This is one that at first kind of makes you scratch your head, but then, oh yeah, they're also teenagers. The students we see want to be the gatekeepers. They want to be able to relay the information to the parents rather than going around them and saying, hey, we're going to give information to your parents, and then they're going to ask you all these specifics, and the student rolls their eyes at the dinner table. Um, I think there's two ways to navigate this. One, you ask the students, what sort of information would you like us to contact your parents with? And maybe it's, hey, we only want you to talk financial aid, or we only want you to talk about these things. Or maybe they say, yeah, I guess it would be nicer if they knew these things. So put it in their wheelhouse to actually control that process. Uh, the other thing is, when we ask, uh, would you give your parents' contact information to a college that asked? Almost all of them would. Now, not everyone would just blanket give it to everybody, which is good. But there was a large number who said, well, if I'm interested enough in the college, absolutely, I want them contacting my parents. Yeah, I'll do that. There were not a lot of students who said, nope, under no circumstances do I want anyone ever talking to my parents. So it's very much they want to own the process. They want to own the search. They want to be in control. So let them lean into that. Say, hey, when you want your parents contacted, just fill out this form. Hey, let us know. Give us a call, send us a text, whatever. Make it easy for them to have that control. Let's see. Do you have any insights on legacy admissions and how juniors, seniors? I haven't asked that, honestly. That would be another good addition. That's why I love these questions. Um, I have a feeling it's overall not popular nationally. I have a feeling we'll see that too. Now, if a student is planning to apply to a college that's hard to get to that their parents went to, I have a sneaking suspicion they'll be more in favor of legacy admissions. Uh, yeah, that's one that I like. That I will add that into something in the future here, and get you an answer, Derek. All right. Next up, what are your thoughts about having high tuition and then offering generous scholarships, but the students only see discounts after the application? Do you, do you want me to pull out my soapbox again here? I'm not a fan. Uh, the hidden actual cost, knowing that, what is it, the average discount rate's well north of 50% now. Why not just price it like so many other things? I know that until there's a critical mass of colleges doing it, it's dangerous. Um, but it has to start too, because students are choosing not to go anywhere or not going to places that would be good fits to them because of that sticker price. They're instead opting, if I see two colleges, one's 20,000, one's 50,000, why should I get my hopes up about the 50,000 coming down to be competitive when I know, well, this one's already starting out cheaper. They'll probably give me something still. Okay, let's take a look at that. And remember that you're not only competing with schools like you. Students are casting that wide net. They're looking at publics, privates, 2 years, 4 years, for profit, nonprofit. Um, you're not just competing with other 50K schools. They're looking at, is the regional public a better fit? It's a lower price. It may be. Should I start at a 2-year college instead? Should I go into an apprenticeship or do a boot camp instead? If we cannot rely on them to just blindly go out and say, oh yeah, maybe I'll get a lot of financial aid. Uh, you know, it could be a good fit. Uh, I really, really, really want to see this change. I just sitting at my desk here have no control over it. So I try not to get too worked up. I like my blood pressure where it's at. Uh, Hard hitting question here. I love this one. Star Wars or Star Trek? I have both over my shoulder. Yep, you can see Yoda, you can see Starfleet, you can see, oh, this way you got Luke and everyone back there. Man, original. I'm a fan of the original 3 Star Wars movies, not the Disney Star Wars, and a fan of especially Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, whatever people say. So very, very important question there, Mike. All right, it looks like that might be all the questions. This is great. We will send out we'll send out the recordings here. We'll send out the podcast tomorrow morning, so you'll get all this. But yes, thank you so much to everybody. I'm everyone who hung on here an extra 10 minutes. I know this is a long time to sit and listen to someone talk, but I appreciate it. We'll be following up tomorrow, and hope everyone stays safe and has a great day.